The night was quiet. Cold winds whispered outside the small mountain observatory as she sat alone, her eyes fixed on the glowing radar screen. It had been just another shift, long hours. Nothing special. She had done this 100 times before sitting in the control room, listening to silence from the stars. Most of the time, the screen showed only static dots. Satellites, distant stars, Earth's regular space traffic. Nothing new. But then, something moved. It wasn't just a random flicker. It shifted again, left to right, then curved slightly slow. But controlled. Her heart skipped. She leaned closer, eyes narrowing. She tapped the screen to mark it, then again to zoom in. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't a satellite either. This thing wasn't following any known orbit. Its speed was strange. Its path didn't match any current space routes. It was quiet. Almost sneaking. She checked the logs. No recent ship was scheduled in that zone. No military alerts. Nothing from global space agencies. This object had no ID, no code. It was just there. For a moment, she sat frozen. A memory came rushing back, something soft, almost forgotten. Her grandmother's voice, those bedtime stories, the tales she had once laughed at. A ship lost in time, wandering the stars. A ship built by humans long ago, launched during a time when Earth believed it could reach the edge of the galaxy. People had called it the Sky Wanderer. Some said it never returned. Some said it never existed. A legend, nothing more, but the pattern, the movement. It matched what her grandmother described years ago. She remembered the old woman's trembling hands sketching on paper, showing strange loops and orbits, saying, if it ever comes back, it will follow this path. She shook her head. It couldn't be. That was just a myth, a story to help a child sleep. But what if, just this once, the story was true? She leaned back and stared at the signal. It was moving slowly, fading in and out of the radar field. Like it was testing something. Or maybe like it didn't want to be seen. Her fingers danced over the keyboard. She saved the data. Backed it up. Marked the timestamp. This was real. It had to be. She reached for the intercom and called her supervisor. The voice on the other end was tired. A false reading, he sighed. Probably some space junk reflecting signals. It happens, she tried to explain. She showed the curve, the controlled motion. No junk moves like this, she argued. But he didn't listen. He cut the call short. Get some rest. You're probably tired. She sat there in silence, her fingers still hovering near the controls. The signal blinked again, slower this time, like it was going. Or maybe, hiding. She didn't sleep that night. When her shift ended, she stayed behind, watching, waiting, hoping the signal would come back. The stars outside the observatory window twinkled like tiny memories, cold, distant, silent. She opened her old journal, the one she kept since she was a child. Tucked inside was a folded page, her grandmother's drawing. The one with the curved path, the orbit that the lost ship would take, if it ever returned. She laid the paper beside her screen. The match was impossible, but there it was. Her heart beat louder now. She wasn't imagining things. She copied the radar image, attached the timestamp, wrote a short message and sent it to a small astronomy group she followed online. Most of them were hobbyists. Some were retired scientists. A few believed in old legends too. Within hours, replies started coming. Some laughed, some ignored. But one message stood out. It was from an older man in another country. He said he had seen the same pattern years ago, once, during a long-range scan. But it vanished before anyone believed him. Now it was back. He told her, if you're seeing this, don't stop watching. This might be the return of something the world forgot. Her hands trembled as she read that message again. The signal on her radar didn't return that night, but she knew it wasn't gone. It was out there. Waiting. Asterisk the next morning. She sat by the radar again, even though it wasn't her shift. Same spot on the screen stayed quiet, empty, like nothing had ever been there. But her mind wouldn't rest. The signal had been real. She had saved the logs. She had seen it move. She reached into her bag and pulled out the journal again. The paper inside had yellowed over the years, but the drawing was still clear. It wasn't fancy, just a few curved lines, some strange dots, and her grandmother's careful handwriting. Path of the Wanderer. As a child, she used to giggle at it. Now she stared at it with a different kind of silence. She remembered how people used to say her grandmother was a dreamer, even strange. Too much time in the stars, they'd say. She sees ghosts in the sky. But her grandmother had always smiled softly and said, not ghosts, just things people stopped believing in. She went home that day feeling unsettled. She wanted answers, but didn't know where to begin. That night, she sat on her floor with a stack of old notebooks, family albums, and newspaper cuttings her grandmother had saved over the years. Some were about space exploration. Others were hand-drawn star maps. One note caught her eye. The next return window, year 2085 to 2090, based on loop drift. Keep watching during northern winter. She checked the calendar. It was winter. She stared at those words like they had been waiting all along. Her thoughts kept circling back to the message she received from the older man in the astronomy group. He had seen the same thing decades ago. He said it appeared, then disappeared. She reached out again. This time, she asked him for details. He replied quickly. He had been an assistant at a radio telescope station in his younger years. One night, while running a long-range scan, they caught a soft signature that didn't match any known craft. It lasted less than 2 minutes. He'd reported it, but was told not to follow up. Waste of time, they said. Don't embarrass yourself. He didn't argue. He was young, new. He stayed quiet, but he never forgot. He asked her something that sent chills down her spine. Does it pulse every 12 seconds? Her hands shook as she typed. Yes, slow pulse. Every 12 seconds. How did you know? He replied. It always does. That's how I knew it wasn't a star or rock. It was speaking. Like a heartbeat. She didn't sleep that night. The next day, she went back to the observatory. This time, she didn't just sit at the radar. She searched the old archives logs from decades ago, back when systems weren't fully digital. Dusty hard drives. Paper records. Forgotten corners of storage. She found something. An old file marked as unidentified signal, December 2087. It was a short note, just a few lines. Strange pulse, unregistered pattern. Duration, 1.45 minutes. Disregarded due to low strength, likely interference. The date matched the man's story. The pulse matched her radar. It had returned, then vanished. Just like now, she printed the report and added it to her folder. She tried sharing her findings with the senior technician at the observatory. He listened for a moment, then sighed. You're chasing shadows, he said. Old stories, we look forward here, not backward. But what if something we lost is trying to come back? She asked. He gave her a tired look. This place runs on numbers, not fairy tales. She stood there in silence as he walked away. No one believed her. But that didn't stop her. That evening, she took the map from her grandmother's journal and overlaid it with the satellite data from the last 3 nights, the curve, the drift, the position of the stars. It all lined up. The so-called myth had been using the same path all along, and no one had noticed. She knew she couldn't rely on the observatory anymore. So she borrowed an old signal receiver from the storage room. With the help of the man from the astronomy group, she learned how to build a homemade tracking station, a laptop, a dish, a custom frequency reader. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. For 3 nights, they waited. Nothing. Then, just as she almost gave up on. The 4th night, the signal returned. Same pulse. Same motion. Same silence. It had come back. Only this time, it was closer. The signal was back. She sat in silence, heart pounding, watching the screen as the faint pulse blinked again. 12 seconds. Then again, 12 more. It was steady, familiar now. Like a whisper from deep space, repeating the same beat as before. This time, it was stronger, clearer, and slightly closer. She leaned forward, hardly breathing. Her makeshift tracker wasn't perfect, but it worked. The dish was old, the wires were cheap, but the signal had returned right on time, just like her grandmother's note had predicted. This wasn't a dream anymore. She wrote everything down. The time, the pattern, the position of nearby stars. She traced the path across a star chart and noticed something strange. It wasn't just drifting. The object was curving. Very slowly, but clearly changing direction. She stared at the map in disbelief that it was moving toward Earth. The realization hit her like a wave. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just passing by. It was coming home. She sent the new data to the older man from the astronomy group. He messaged back right away. It's not lost. It remembers the way. That sentence stayed with her. Not lost, just waiting. But why had no one noticed before? She dug deeper. Her hands moved fast over the keyboard as she searched for forgotten missions, old satellite logs, buried reports from years ago. Late into the night, she found something. A name. Project Athena. It was listed in a government archive from over 150 years ago. A space exploration mission, classified, then marked as mission lost. No location, no recovery. No follow-up. The file had no photos, no video, just a single sentence under its summary. Launched during the Deep Reach Initiative. Last known signal faint pulse, non-verbal, 12-second intervals. She gasped. The same pulse. She saved the document. Printed it. Read it again and again. This wasn't just a lost signal anymore. It had a name, a history, and maybe people. But the question still remained. If the ship had been floating for over 100 years, how was it still working? She messaged the man again and asked him. He answered. Ships from that era were built for endurance, long cryosleep, solar recharging. Some were designed to fly for centuries without stopping. It made sense now. If Project Athena had survived, it might still be running on backup systems, floating quietly, waiting for someone to listen. She felt a lump in her throat. What if someone was still alive on it? The idea seemed impossible, yet the more she thought about it, the more it pulled at her heart. Even if no one lived, even if it was just a machine, it still meant something. It meant that a piece of Earth's forgotten history was still out there moving, breathing, waiting. She decided it was time to do more than watch. She reached out to a small private aerospace company known for space monitoring. They didn't have the big resources like the government, but they believed in exploration. She sent them the signal data, the map, her research, and the connection to Project Athena. Days passed. No reply. Then one night, her phone buzzed. A short message. We received your data. It's not fake. We're sending a drone. She stared at the screen for a long time. They believed her. A drone was launched a week later. Small, fast, equipped with long-range scanners and cameras. It took days to reach the general zone where the signal was last tracked. Every hour felt like a lifetime. Then, finally, the first image came through. Her breath caught. It was grainy, covered in dark space. Fog, but in the center, a shape, not natural. Not a rock, long metallic, with panels shaped like wings. Parts of it looked broken, but other parts still glowed faintly under the sunlight. Then came the second image. Closer now, and there it was. painted on the side of the ship, almost invisible under layers of dust and space. Burn Athena. She covered her mouth with her hands. It was real. It had survived, and it was returning. She had no words, only tears. Her grandmother's bedtime stories had always ended with the line, "And one day the ship will come home, and the stars will remember our names." Now that line didn't feel like a story anymore. It felt like a promise that had waited over 100 years to be fulfilled. Asterisk. The pictures of the ship spread quietly through the small circle of astronomers and space watchers. At first, no one dared to say it out loud, but everyone knew what they were looking at. It was old, it was real, and it had human markings. She sat staring at the image on her laptop. The letters Athena were barely visible, faded by time, but they were there. She had printed the image and taped it beside her grandmother's old hand-drawn path. They matched almost perfectly. The ship was right where it was supposed to be, following the curve predicted by a woman who had never touched space, only dreamed of it. She kept checking the live feed from the drone. It hovered quietly near the ship, collecting data. Its instruments scanned the outer body. No weapons, no power spikes, no signs of hostility, just silence. And a soft blinking light from a tiny beacon still working near the hull. She watched the data scroll across the screen. Temperature levels, stable. External power, weak. Internal heat, low. But not zero. Her breath caught. That meant something inside was still alive. She reached out to the aerospace company handling the drone. They confirmed it. There's low-level heat from the core. They said, could be a backup system. Could be a cryochamber still running. A cryochamber, a frozen pod. A sleeper. She leaned back in her chair, her thoughts spinning. Could someone be alive on that ship? It had been nearly 2 centuries since Athena launched. No human should have survived that long. And yet, the data said something different. The company upgraded the drone's link. They activated a small external speaker on the drone, allowing for one-way broadcast toward the ship. They asked her if she wanted to say something. She hesitated. What could she say to a ship that had wandered through space longer than her entire family's history? She spoke slowly, gently. If anyone can hear this, you're not forgotten. You're not alone. We see you. We remember. The message was transmitted. For hours, nothing happened. The stars blinked quietly across the screens. Then, just as she was about to give up and close the laptop, something changed. The pulse. It sped up. Not by much, but enough. She stared at it, hands trembling. She zoomed in on the signal's rhythm. It wasn't a system glitch. It was intentional. It was answering. The team at the aerospace company ran an audio scan. And then, they heard it. A faint crackle. Static. Then something else. A sound. Not music. Not machine noise. A voice. It was broken, full of gaps, but real. Earth, we see. Coming home. She covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. It wasn't a myth. It wasn't just a ship. It was someone, a human voice calling back across centuries of silence. The world still didn't know. Governments hadn't spoken. News stations hadn't picked it up yet. It was still small. Still private. But it wouldn't stay that way for long. The aerospace company confirmed the signal was real. The voice was pre-recorded, probably from an automated log. But someone had triggered it, which meant someone was still inside. Or something still knew how to respond. They planned the next step, to launch a recovery pod to physically dock with the ship. It would take time, funding, careful approval, but she didn't care how long it took. She had heard the voice, and that was enough. She went back to the observatory that evening, standing on the platform where it all began. The stars above looked the same, but they didn't feel the same. Somewhere out there, a ship built by her ancestors was still floating. Still alive. People had forgotten it, but it hadn't forgotten them. She remembered the last time her grandmother told the story. It was the night before she passed. Sometimes, the old woman had whispered, our greatest hopes don't die. They just wait in the dark until someone looks up and sees them again. That night, she looked up, and for the first time in her life, the stars didn't feel cold. They felt like home. It didn't take long for the world to notice the pictures of the ship, the signal logs, and the recorded voice slowly spread beyond the astronomy groups and research circles. First, a few science pages posted about it. Then space bloggers picked it up, and then the headlines arrived. Lost human ship found after 180 years. Voice from the past shocks scientists. Was the Sky Wanderer real all along? People who had never cared about stars before started watching the sky. But for her, it wasn't about attention. It wasn't about news or fame. It was about that quiet voice, that gentle signal, and the old notebook filled with star maps, drawn by a woman who had believed before anyone else. The aerospace company held a private press event to confirm everything. The ship was now moving slowly, pulled by Earth's gravity. Still quiet, still pulsing, and still heading home. She was invited to speak. She stood in front of scientists, engineers, reporters all waiting. She didn't prepare a big speech. She just held up the faded paper, the one with her grandmother's path drawn on it, and said softly, she was right. And I'm just the one who listened. There was silence in the room. Then someone asked the question that had been building for weeks. Is anyone alive on that ship? The room held its breath. The lead engineer replied, we believe there are 2 working cryopods. They show low power, but stable temperature. We are preparing a recovery mission. If they are intact, there may be survivors. She closed her eyes. 2 people, 2 lives, 2 souls. Still waiting in silence. The next few weeks were filled with preparation. The world watched as the recovery team launched a vessel toward the ship. It was slow work, delicate and careful. The ship had been through centuries of space. One wrong move could destroy it. When the vessel finally reached Athena, it docked carefully. She watched the live feed on a giant screen, surrounded by people. Her fingers were tight around her grandmother's notebook. The doors opened. Dust floated through the air inside. Everything was dim, ancient, but still intact. The camera moved past the dark control panels, past the seats, past the old flags of Earth's early nations stitched into the walls, and then it reached them. 2 cryo-pods. Lights glowing faintly, frozen faces inside, a man and a woman young, peaceful, untouched by time. The room around her gasped. She couldn't breathe. Mission leader spoke. We're confirming life signs. Both pods are functioning. We're preparing transport. Tears rolled down her face. They were real, not just legends, not stories, not myths. Real people. She had helped bring them home. In the days that followed, Earth came together in a way it hadn't in years. The ship was carefully towed toward orbit. Nations offered to support its return. Scientists from all fields studied the design, calling it a time capsule of humanity's forgotten hope. But more than science, it was the feeling that moved people, a reminder that dreams, once believed lost, could return. The pods were opened in a clean medical station in orbit, slowly, gently, and after hours of careful steps. The first eye opened. The woman inside blinked against the light. She whispered, where are we? The doctor smiled and answered, you're home. They didn't understand right away. Time had passed. Everything they knew was gone. But Earth welcomed them not with fear, but with love. She watched from a screen as they stepped out. For the first time, she couldn't stop crying. They were the last passengers of a forgotten journey, and she had been the first one to hear their call. Later, when asked what she would say to them if she met them face to face, she answered, I'd just say, we never stopped hoping. Even if the world forgot, Someone remembered, and I'm so glad you came back. A statue was placed at the observatory where she first saw the signal. Not of her, not of the ship, but of a girl sitting under the stars. With a notebook in her hand, the title carved into stone, "For those who believed first." And every night after that, she would still sit by her radar, still look up, still listen. Because now she knew somewhere out there, time didn't always mean the end. Sometimes time was just a longer road home.